Welcome to the MattyRocks. Experience it on the road with MattyRocks on location at NAMM 2018, day number 2. Join with special guest, singer, songwriter, musician, lyricist, producer, guitarist, Scott St. Louis. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How's your NAMM experience going so far?
I just got here.
Okay.
So this is my very first thing. I don't even have my badge yet, so.
Yeah. Well, you got to get that in order to go anywhere.
Exactly.
So, Scott, what are some of your goals and objectives while you're here at NAMM this week?
You know, it's such a big event, and it's too much to see. There's a lot of things I want to see. There's a lot of things I'd like to accomplish, and then I get here, and I just, I don't know if you can relate to that. But
I can.
It's
Absolutely.
overstimulation.
Do you have endorsers that you're here for?
Well, typically I'll meet with Fender because they actually endorse a animated show that I'm involved in as well. So I'll go by and say hi to them. But I'm here as a guest of Yamaha today. So
Scott, if you would, take MattyRocks listeners back to the early life in Long Beach, California. Mm-hmm. Give us insight to how music came into your life.
For me, it was listening to something, and it changed the way that I felt. When I would hear powerful music, I would actually be able to disappear into it and become a part of it. It was almost telling a narration of my life, so to speak, just kind of moving along through that type of direction, trying to identify with the emotions that I was feeling. So everybody asks me, "What's your favorite band?" And I go, I don't know. I love grooves. I love the beats. I love the drive. I love the emotion. I love artists that really pour their heart out and really set up this intimate setting where you can't escape it. Mm-hmm. You hear it, it touches you, it grabs you. It's almost hypnotic.
Talk about some of the earlier influences in your life musically that have helped shape to make you the musician that you are today.
You know, I would say that I probably started listening to G.R.E.G and Motley Crue, Iron Maiden, and
the Sunset Strip days.
Yeah. You know, it was the first guy I ever met. When first time I ever went to the Rainbow Bar Room was a guy named Lemmy, so from Motorhead. Yep. And I felt so uncomfortable and so out of place there, and I ended up in the kitchen, and it was me, Lemmy, and John Entwistle in the kitchen of the Rainbow. And Lemmy talked to me like I was one of his crew. You know, he really made me feel like at home, and I felt like, okay, you know, there is some good-hearted people here, because like when you come to Los Angeles and you go to the Sunset Strip and everybody's out for themselves and everybody's trying to get somewhere, and you're this guy and you feel like, I don't know, you just feel so out of place, you know, like you don't belong.
That's an opportunity that not everyone gets.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I've had several conversations with him. Yeah, exactly.
You know.
So I met up again with him in Prague, and I'm sitting at the bar. We're in the same airport together, and he's sitting right next to me, and I'm ordering an espresso and a bottle of water. And he looks at me and he goes, "You know, mate, fish piss in that." You know what I mean? And I was like,
classic. Meeting Lemmy like that, and if there was a message to send to Lemmy, what would you say to him?
Yeah, I would just tell him, man, I was just really shocked at how kind-hearted he was. You know, he's a metal god, so to speak. And you have conversations with people sometimes that make you feel like you're the only person in the room. He did that for me, and I would say thanks for doing that, because I probably would have went home with my tail between my legs.
Wow, yeah. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Scott, I know that music is important to you in your life. Take a step back to the early years on the Sunset Strip, because those days weren't easy. No. I mean, you had to make your way.
That's right.
Talk about those experiences and how that brought you up to where you are today.
We only knew what you would read in Circus or Kerrang or anything like that. That what you did is you put a band together, you had to look a certain way, you had to play a certain style of music, you have to go out there, you have to flyer, you have to drink in order to have the courage to go out there and flyer and deal with all this. Because, I mean, it was like thousands of people on the Strip in those days, and you trying to stand out. I left, and I went and started another band called the Ditchbank Cookies, which was a cowpunk band. It was completely different and off the radar, and I started a rehearsal facility for bands, and I had a private club, and directly across the street from me was SST Records, which was Greg again from Black Flag's label, and they had Husker Du, And they had, like the old Soul Asylum stuff and the old catalogs like that. And then right next door to them was Korn. And then right across the way from them was at the drive-in. So we were all kind of like right there doing our things. And we toured with a lot of bands. We had 7 international releases. We did it all on our own. We were selling CDs and T-shirts out of our van. We used to have a David Allen Coe sticker on the back of the van, because if you're a rock band and you're traveling across America, you're going to get pulled over, right? So we'd always have an 8-track cassette of David Allen Coe that when we get pulled over, we'd put it in, and we would tell them we were a country band, and they would let us go.
New Orleans post 9/11 was a tough time.
Yeah.
As a musician, talk about some of those experiences and trying to find your way.
I had a pretty bad drug problem at that time, and I remember taking it was right after 9/11, and I have to fly out there. I have several different shows that I'm doing, different cities. It was a really disturbing time in my life where I felt like I had to have enough drugs and enough alcohol just to leave my environment. Mm-hmm. So I would take drugs with me in my pockets, and I would put them in my pants, and I'd store them away. And I remember I took it in, and they're like, "Sir, we need to search your bag." And I'm like, "Okay." So I take it over there, and she's like, pulls the pair of pants up that I know have decent amount of drugs in them. I go, "Well, you know what? It's so hot there. I don't need polyester pants. I'm just going to go throw this stuff away, And she gave the pants back to me. So I took the pants and I threw them away out in the parking lot, and I put the drugs in my pocket, and I went through security. But New Orleans is a very interesting town. I'm not sure if you've been there or not, but it feels different just when you get there. And I got sucked into that, man. I mean, and I stayed. I kept coming back to New Orleans, and I was there for just 2 months, just basically roaming around and sleeping on people's couches.
But were you doing the music?
Yeah.
You were doing the music
Yeah,
still?
I was playing there. I just kept playing at this little place, and I was there for the Jazz Fest the first time. I did that, and then missed the flight, and then flew off to Orlando, and flew off to Atlanta, and flew off and just kept coming back,
Scott, where do all the ideas and inspirations come that create your music?
They're real life experiences. Have you ever seen Amadeus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great movie.
So it's the only way that I can communicate with the world. So I'm a very closed off individual usually, very private, very just kind of want to put on headphones and watch Netflix all day kind of guy, I feel like I need to, if I have to speak about it, it's the only way that I can say what I really need to say without actually hurting somebody.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because I'm kind of an atypical person, so I just am very direct. And music has been kind of my savior, but it's also my demon, because in that aspect, you feel like you have to keep going. And this is going to bring me back to the Amadeus thing, where he felt like he was commissioned by his dead father. What he thought was his dead father to write his final opera. It feels like that sometimes. I mean, I was in fetal positions writing some of these songs. It was just pain. It was real life. It was kind of sticking myself out there. It was being in relationships with people who had other problems. Me, myself, having my own problems. We're referring back to the song "I Think You're Beautiful," which is what the video is. That was an eating disorder situation. And I don't know if you've ever been involved with anyone who has an eating disorder. The challenge is that you can tell them that you think that they're beautiful and you love them, and they don't believe it because they don't feel that way about themselves. You saying it actually makes them more uncomfortable.
And that actually happened to me.
Yeah.
By someone gave me that feedback and told me that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was being genuine, which I was, and giving a great compliment. But on the other hand, it hurt them.
Yeah.
Deeper.
They didn't believe it.
No.
So, and they think that you're just saying it to them. And I can relate to that too, because even especially when you're putting yourself out there and you put music out there and you're getting reviewed and you're getting criticized or critiqued, whatever you want to call it. Somebody will say, "Oh, that's great," this is it. And then you think yeah, okay, they're probably just saying that, but I can get caught up in it too. And I found that out about myself as well. Like, I can go right along for the ride and just keep going down with them.
Right.
And that's a very painful place to be.
Scott, if someone listens to your music for the first time, who's never heard you before,
Right.
what genre do they classify it under?
They kind of say, well, if it's an industry person, it's adult contemporary, right? It's the AC,
Okay.
General format. It's rock, but this album is very mellow compared to some of the other stuff that I've done. And so for some people, it's a shock because they're like, well, we're used to you being the singer for the Ditchbank Okies and, writing songs about, things that happen in America and making fun of it. And I think they're very shocked. They're very surprised. I think they're able to actually get into it hypnotically. Mm-hmm. And one thing else that I've noticed is that once they listen to it, it generally never leaves their rotation because they can find something that they can relate to in it. And that's what I set out to do. My goal isn't to make $1 million playing music. My goal is if somebody can listen to the music and say, hey, I felt that way, and this song really helped me get through it, then I've done my job.
Right.
I've done my job.
That's
when you're talking about helping out humanity.
Absolutely.
And that's where I want to be.
Your solo release that you've worked on,
Right.
It was just released in October.
Correct.
It's available out there. How is that release doing for you so far?
It's doing okay. Nowadays we're not really in the record sales world. We're more in the
Right.
People adding it to their Spotify or watching it on YouTube and things like that.
People's comments.
And people's comments, and
That's
they're
more
coming.
valuable than anything.
Exactly. They're coming. They're listening. They're not leaving as followers, and so I kind of feel like, okay, we're doing the right thing here. This isn't. And again, I have to. And Steve Perry told me this one time, and I think everybody knows who he is, but he said. We have to relearn everything, right? We have to learn how to be a fan again.
Right.
We have to learn how to be a fan again because we get so jaded in this world, especially this entertainment world, where it's like, okay, well, either I hate you or I really like you, and we get caught up in what people think of us, and I really like to listen to music with headphones, or if I'm in the car and I sing other people's songs and things like that, and I had to learn how to be a fan again because I was only listening to talk radio. I'm just going to listen to talk radio. I'm going to listen to Howard Stern. I'm going to listen to whatever I can to just kind of stay away from it. And then he shared that with me, and it changed my whole perspective because then at that point it doesn't really matter because you can look at the stuff and not go, oh, well, I used to listen to that in 8th grade. I'm not going to listen to that anymore, right? And you can go and find a new love for it.
You had some big name players.
Yes.
On your CD. Talk about some of those names and what they brought to that release for you.
So it was my first experience with people of this caliber, so to speak, right? So the first guy we brought in was Steve Ferroni, who's a drummer for Tom Petty, and he's on tour now with the Straits, and he's played with Eric Clapton, he's played with Duran Duran, he played with Average White Band. We've been really good friends for 10 to 12 years now, and I said, hey, do you want to play on my stuff? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So he came to a show, he saw me play, and he was like, okay, great, when do you want to do it? And I go, well, come on out. And so he shows up, right? And I've got everything demoed and laid out. And I told him very specifically, look, I am not going to tell you what to play because I really want this to be different. I want this experience to be from your perspective. Like, you're the guy that's played on over 3,000 songs. Like, you know what you're doing, right? And I did that with all the players. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to play. I want you to play from your perspective. And so he came in and he literally knocked out 12 tracks in like 10 hours. I mean, he'd never even heard the songs before except for just coming to one live show. So he would listen, he would chart it, and he would go. Wow. He would listen, he would chart it, and he would go. And, we had lunch and cigar time and stuff like that in between as well. And he just taught me. He taught me so much about ego in music. Like, he has no ego. Like, he would play for me just the same as he would play for Tom Petty, or the Bee Gees, or, Eric Clapton, and not at union rates, know. So it was a thing, and we developed a friendship off of that, and we have a lot of the same interests, and we would meet a lot of different places around the world. I'd come to see Tom Petty play, and we'd hang out during the day, and we're both sober, so we have a lot of the same interests, and he that guy has taught me so much in life. I mean, I cannot say enough about Stephen Ferroni. He's amazing. He's like a second father to me. Abe Labario, Abe came in, same experience, no ego whatsoever. And I said to Abe the same thing. I said, look, just play, just do what you do. And then they just do what they do, you know. Right. It's amazing. And then Russ Irwin, who had started out kind of counter-producing this release with me, and he's an amazing songwriter, amazing musician as well. And he plays a lot of things. I mean, he actually even played some guitar on the record. He did a lot of, not all the piano, but in some songs the pianos and some organ. And he was with Aerosmith for 20 years. And he's the only guy I ever met who played the Super Bowl with Sting, when Sting and Aerosmith played the Super Bowl at halftime.
Right.
So like he was on the stage with Sting, and then they carted him across to play with Aerosmith
how
in the same set, you know. So like, and he's a really good guy, man. So I these guys made me better player. Like I always thought, you know, I'm a good player, but when you play with these guys and then you really get what they're doing on a different level, it takes the song in a whole new dynamic, and it forces you to rethink the song. You know, because the songs that I went there on demo with are not the same songs that are on the record today, and it's because of these guys. And then Jimmy Earl and Steve Ferroni actually played together on Does Anyone Know the Way? So, and then they're on Today.
What message do you want the world to know about your music and who you are as a musician?
I think it's a different game. You know, it's a different game. I'm showing you this is who I am. This is who I really am. This is who I genuinely am. And for me, that's very uncomfortable, right? It's very uncomfortable to be in that place. From a musical standpoint, I'm telling you about my life in a song. It's almost like a diary. And I don't want to make it seem, but it's the way, if you want to know the inner workings of Scott St. Louis's mind, listen to his music, because this is really the way that I think. This is really how my decision makings are done. And you know, so from a musical standpoint, if you want real, raw, genuine music, that's what I'm doing. You know, I've had situations where people wanted me to write for them in the past, and it was very hard for me because I can't write and conform to the way that they want to, because I feel like I'm doing a disservice to my own heart. You know,
if you had to think back throughout of your entire musical career so far, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment to date?
I would say having dinner with Buck Owens. A lot of people aren't going to know who Buck Owens is, but we're at Ditchbank Okies, and we were playing in Bakersfield with some band called Cradle of Thorns, which Jonathan Davies from Korn was producing and behind. And we got invited over to the Crystal Palace and for a dinner and a set with Buck Owens, and it was just probably one of the highlights of my life, because as a songwriter, I always felt like he was just top notch.
What does the future hold for Scott St. Louis?
Hopefully a tour in the spring, looking at spring and summer, if we can generate enough interest to where I can go out there and do it and not come home bankrupt, then I'd be more than happy to do it, get out there and do that. But there's another album that's in the works. It's the drums, bass, guitars, and the majority of the vocals are already done, that I hope to possibly release at the end of the year. But we're also doing a video for the song Does Anyone Know the Way? And what we're doing is we're following around a homeless veteran family, and we're trying to get them into a facility that will allow them to get back on their feet.
Wow.
Because I want any video that I make, and I tell the directors, the director on I Think You're Beautiful and of this one, Does Anyone Know the Way? His name's Eric Burdett. And I said, look, I don't want the video to be about me. It has to be about what the song represents. So I feel wholeheartedly that we don't take care of our veterans in this country the way that we should. And that's where the future lies for me. I think it's going to be about making music and making videos that make a difference. And hopefully somebody can watch it and go, wow, I felt that way, or I can really relate to that. Like when I look at this magazine, even though it says this is what I see, you know? So that's my future. That's where I belong. Whether I get, famous or anything along those lines, it doesn't matter, because now that you've got the internet, all this stuff will be there forever, and people will be able to go back. And I want my kids, if they ever get in trouble, to be able to look back and maybe say, wow, my dad felt like that too. So,
if your kids ever decide to take this path in music, what advice do you give them?
Stay true to yourself. Stay true to yourself. Be a fan. Never lose sight of why you got involved in music, because it made you feel a certain way. Follow that path. Don't worry about, whether you're going to be headlining the Staples Center or the Forum, or if you're going to be, the next Prince or Tom Petty, or I don't even know if we have those type of artists today anymore. Let's try to stay focused on what you're doing. Love what you do. Because if you do, that's the only thing that's going to get you through.
I'm going to give you the opportunity, just like I give every artist I have the opportunity to sit one-on-one with, a message to MattyRocks listeners who are listening or are going to hear this audio and watch this video. What message do you have for them? What would you like to say to them?
I would say stay true to yourself. Be who you are. I think you're beautiful. That's what I would say.
Thanks again, Scott, for taking the time out of your busy NAMM schedule to sit with me. This is truly an honor.
Yeah, thank you, man.
And continued success to you in everything you've got going on in your musical arena. You've heard it here, MattyRocks listeners, on the road with MattyRocks in Scott, St. Louis, NAMM 2018. MattyRocks out.
I've given everything I had, the spirit of my soul. I wrapped up my own ego and brought down